Elephants in Thailand have a challenging and uneasy relationship with human beings. Despite being revered in Thai culture, wild elephants are seen as a rampaging menace, raiding crops from farmers to be deterred at all costs. The tamed captive elephants' lives are just as fraught. But human-elephant conflict is a serious problem that needs to be solved for the sake of both the elephants and the people. A Dutch woman has teamed up with conservationists in Thailand and South Africa to tackle the issue. Their combined efforts are bringing hope back to the forest. In 2008, Antoinette van der Water traveled to Thailand to volunteer for conservation work. After an encounter with a begging street elephant, she initiated an ambitious project under the name of Bring the Elephant Home. She arranged for two young stressed street elephants to journey north over 600 kilometers to the Elephant Nature Park in the Chiang Mai province. A decade on and the park is thriving with over 70 elephants, all of which are now free from human mistreatment. But having been denied a life in the wild from an early age, they are still dependent on benevolent human intervention.
So the elephants that we brought to Elephant Nature Park, they have a great life. They're like in a big family, they had babies. The first elephant that we rescued in that horrible situation, she gave birth to a baby Chang Yim, and I was very lucky that I could see him being born.
From that special experience came a realization that was to change the course of Antoinette's life.
My dream always was to provide them a life almost like wild elephants, that they would have their own family and like have their social bonding again. And I always thought, because Doc Nern was still young, that maybe one day she will have her own children. But well, when she arrived here, I felt very disappointed that she was really afraid of other elephants and other people. She was actually trying to get away from all the craziness here. It took about, I would say, like half a year for her to really feel comfortable here and to connect with other elephants. And actually, the first elephant that she was close with was a baby elephant. She was like trying to take care of baby elephants, and she was like almost observing the behavior of other mother elephants and see how you can become like a nanny of other baby elephants. So you could see that she was really, almost obsessed with it, and that she really wanted a baby herself. And then in the end, like after some years, we started to suspect that she was really pregnant, just because she got much bigger and she even got breasts and trying to give milk to baby elephants. And then one of my last nights here, I was going back to the Netherlands, I think the next day, and I didn't really plan to stay overnight in Elephant Nature Park. But we were just having a beer and I was chatting. It was just a very lovely night. I decided, okay, maybe I stay overnight here. So I went to a room, I fell asleep. And then in the middle of the night, somebody was like knocking on my door and like, to the elephant shelter, now! I immediately woke up and I was thought, okay, there's something with Doc Nern. So in the darkness, I ran to the elephant shelter and I arrived there and a big ball came out like a sack and it was like, poof. And it right in front of me, and I saw the baby like kicking in the sack, but it couldn't come out. And then it was like quiet for a moment, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. It was kind of scary as well. And then Dagner and the mother came and she started kicking it. And then I thought, like, okay, I hope she doesn't hurt the baby. And then suddenly she kicked it again and it splashed open. And suddenly this little trunk came out. It was unbelievable. It was such an amazing sight. Then the others came. Dagner was like pushing the baby up, and like within a few minutes it was standing up. It's amazing. It was one of the most beautiful things I ever saw. And then the mother was like making this sound, like so pure and so alive. And yeah, she was immediately there comforting the baby, and all the other elephants were, the whole park, all the elephants were just making noise, like everybody knew what was going on. And that was the bird of Changyim.
Despite the happy occasion, Antoinette realized that Changyim will grow up cared for by both elephant and human being. But he will never know the life of a wild elephant.
The Elephant Nature Park is like the first elephant sanctuary in Thailand. And at first, nobody in Thailand would believe that it would be successful, that people would actually pay to volunteer, for example, in an elephant sanctuary. But they've proven that it is a very successful model, and the Elephant Nature Park became very big. They started new projects in many different locations. They do great work to raise awareness about animal welfare. And by giving that example, many other places are copying that model now, and many with great intentions, that they really care for the animals and want to provide an alternative for all those tourists that want to be close with elephants. And there are also, of course, many that are doing it for marketing reasons, because they see that it's working really well and they want to copy the same model, but in the end, maybe it's still exploitation of elephants. Yeah, unfortunately, in Thailand, tourism with wildlife is everywhere. It's booming. Yeah, it's a sad reality that it's still so popular. So it's still like a long way to go to change that mentality of seeing wild animals in that kind of situation.
In the past decade, as the concept of ethical tourism gained ground, these elephant shows have been cast in an unflattering light. Victims of their own massive popularity, the elephants have to be manageable and biddable. So at a young age they are put through what's known as the pajan. The term is loosely translated as crushing. The young animal's movement is severely restricted inside a cage, with ropes attached to stop leg and head movement. Over time, the animal's will is broken, and it responds to learned vocal commands or encouragement from a sharp tool in a sensitive spot. When you see a performing elephant, the odds are high that you are seeing the result of fear and pain. Our mastery over wild animals is not limited to elephants. One of the greatest of nature's predators is reduced to a drugged, passive existence. If there are tourists willing to pay to be photographed with tigers and their cubs, then these animals will be brought to heel to do human bidding. This is so very far from ethical tourism. Arriving in Thailand for the first time, Antoinette gets her first culture shock.
In one of my first nights out, we were in a bar and this baby elephant appeared, and everybody immediately ran to that baby and trying to give beer to the baby elephant, and there was just so much noise and craziness. It was just such a surreal situation to see a baby elephant in that situation. And my first reaction was also, I was like, it was so exciting to see my first elephant in Thailand, and it was also such a coincidence because I was just talking about it. But then I was just thinking, like, how this was nothing what I would have expected. And I was thinking, yeah, where would the mother of the baby elephant be, and where would it sleep at night, and why doesn't anyone do something about it? Because it was so obvious animal abuse.
Elephant exploitation isn't confined to the city streets. As tourism brings in almost a fifth of the country's GDP, tame elephants are still required to give rights to people, mostly ignorant of the plight of these majestic animals. Despite their size and strength, their spines are easily damaged by overloading. Captive elephants die decades earlier than those in the wild, a fate brought on by the conditions in which they are forced to live. Reputable tour companies are now removing their support for this practice. It's a sad irony that it's the love of animals that attracts tourists to elephants in the first place. Ethical tourism is on the rise, but traditional tourist traps are making a roaring trade too.
Elephant tourism is still growing as well, so there's still many other camps and other sanctuaries that are making a lot of money, and I just felt like all that money should at least support elephants in the wild as well. So when I look back for all those years working in Thailand, I feel really proud of the development of bringing the elephant home, from such a small project of rescuing 2 street-begging elephants to many different community-based conservation projects and getting so many people involved in our foundation. Yeah, I also just feel very proud that I can kind of walk away now and see that these projects are still moving on and still continuing. Yeah, I just feel really glad that there's also Bring the Elephant Home in Thailand that doesn't need my support all the time. I was also very privileged that I could observe many elephants in the wild. And I had these moments that I was just sitting somewhere in the forest, and it was like beautiful nature. It is so peaceful to have a whole group of wild elephants. And I just thought about, this is what we should focus on. Like, this is really how the life of elephants should be and what I should fight for to protect. At the Elephant Nature Park, that chapter is done. I'm really glad how it went. I just decided we should change the direction of Bring the Elephant Home completely. Yeah, we started to focus on wild elephant conservation. I started to think about what is the real problem of elephants, and I realized that all the elephants that are in such difficult situations is mainly because they're losing their habitat. In Thailand, they were used, for example, to work in logging camps. So ironically, they caught elephants from the wild and then trained them to destroy their own homes. Tourism is important for elephant survival. It's a way for people to see elephants in their natural environment. It's a way to really support elephant conservation and create income for elephant conservation.
Tourism also provides great benefits for the local economy.
It is really important that it's done in a sustainable and respectful way. And there is a big challenge in how to move it in the right direction. And there's also a big opportunity to really create positive projects and to create projects that tourism can really contribute to saving elephants. It's so important for tourism. People have this long history of living with elephants. And if you really think about that, and if you observe elephants in the wild, you just really have to think, like, is it really, really right what we're doing to the elephants? And should we just all collaborate to really find a way to keep them in the wild? So for the elephants, it's a desperate situation. And Thailand is just so developed that in all these different areas, elephants are just trapped in a habitat that is not suitable for them to survive. And then there are local communities that have their farmland. If there's not enough food for the elephants, for example, and there is a plantation, and of course the elephants go to the plantations to find food there. So for both sides, it's a very difficult situation. It's a very complex problem to solve. For people, if they depend on their harvest and elephants come to raid their crops all the time, when it escalates, each year there are hundreds of people and elephants that get injured or killed. There's property damage, there's crop raiding. And we notice that each year it's getting more intense. People are struggling to coexist with elephants. We also notice that people in Thailand are also really proud of having elephants nearby. It also has to do with people just to be more tolerant and to be more kind and to just accept elephants in their environment as well. I think if we can touch on that as well, just to have people to feel the pride again and to find ways together to coexist with elephants, then I'm really hopeful for the future.
Sacred to the people of Thailand, the elephant is nonetheless losing its habitat to a rapidly developing nation. Development and conservation are at loggerheads. Conservation for Antoinette is a literal way of life.
Conservation, it's my passion, it's my drive. And my dream is to inspire lots of people to become conservationists as well. And I believe it's one of the most important things that the world needs. And it gives hope, and it gives meaning to life. And I'm really grateful that I choose that path in life, and that at least can contribute to making the world a little bit better.
There's no denying the attraction of these animals, but there is a more fundamental reason for Antoinette's commitment.
The main reasons why I'm so passionate about elephant conservation is that they're also so important for the world. They're keystone species. That means that many other species depend on elephants for their survival. For example, they open up patches of forest, so there is a chance for grasslands to grow. When there's grassland, you have grazing animals. When you have grazing animals, you can have carnivores. They create water places for other animals. So if we would lose the elephants as a keystone species, it would affect so many other species. And the effect that would have on biodiversity is something we can't really oversee. And in the end, that would affect us all.
Wild roaming elephants certainly affect local crop growers. But how do you stop a 5-ton hungry elephant?
In Thailand, farmers often make their own electric fences, but that means that they take the electric directly from the main pole. Very often you hear that elephants get electrocuted.
There are ways to deter trespassing elephants. A ranger patrol has had reports of a female elephant testing the electric fence on a farm that shares a border with wild forest.
400พี่
At night, a ranger's job increases in both risk and difficulty.
นู่นจับภาพเลยจับภาพแล้วขอ 2 ครับ 2
To encourage the elephant to leave the area, the rangers enlist the help of local monks.
โอ้ยใจสั่นหมดเลย
It's believed that their sacred animals are deterred by, of all things, drumming. An inhuman roar means the electric fence has been compromised. The female now brought low by the shock.
โอ้ยใจสั่นหมดเลย
She recovers, but the rangers and the monks are drawn further into the forest by another cry.
โน่นมันยืนอยู่โน่นหลายตัวหลายตัวนะอย่าเข้าไปพ่อออกมาอยู่ในสภาพแบบไหนภาพเยอะกลับไปเร็วดก
The baby elephant will not free itself without help. Ceremonial joss sticks are lit as the heavy lifting gear arrives. People burn sacred incense to bring good luck or to request divine favor. While the anxious mother is still close, the team has to be patient. So begins a delicate rescue. The aim is to create an inclined path so that the baby can haul itself out.
เอาลงไปเองเดี๋ยวมันจะหลุดไปใส่เขา
The The animal is terrified, but there is no other way of helping it.
อย่ามาเย็นอย่าเย็นอย่ามาด้วยอย่ามาด้วยเดี๋ยวเราจะตอบ
The pipe is compromised. It has to be broken for the elephant to get a purchase. Finally, an end to its torment. It's a happy ending for the elephant, not so happy for the farmer.
So for farmers, it's already a lot of money to set up a fence, and then if they have to maintain it all the time and fix it, and then they still get crop-raiding elephants. And so these people have very negative attitude towards the elephants.
To keep the fences from being torn down, Antoinette discovered another extraordinary method of keeping elephants at bay.
Based on research that has been done in Kenya, there's Dr. Lucy King. She discovered that elephants are afraid of bees. Actually, the way that she learned about it was because they were studying the communication between elephants. And scientists found out that elephants have like a different word almost, a different alarm call to warn each other for bees. And then they started to test first just with bee sounds and then with real beehives. And then there was this model, beehive fences. So what they do is they hang beehives in a structure and then connect them with ropes. And when an elephant tries to enter a plantation, the beehives start to swing, the bees come out, and that scares the elephant enough to actually run away. The reason why elephants are afraid of bees is because they have a memory of getting stung. Elephants have such a thick skin, but some parts of their body are actually very sensitive. So, for example, the tip of their trunk, around the eyes, the ears. And actually from an insect bite, an elephant can easily bleed already.
As well as the beehives, there are strategically placed infrared cameras so that the elephant's behavior can be monitored. The beehive fences deter those who've had experience of bee stings. But there will always be individuals who push their luck as well as the beehives. What can be disturbed can be put in place once more. Despite their very obvious differences, elephants and bees have one thing in common. As keystone species, they both enrich and enable the habitats in which they live. A third of humankind's crops is pollinated by bees and their kind. They are tiny, but enormous in importance. The footage is subsequently gathered and added to the wealth of information modern technology allows us to amass. The project in Africa is having the same effect on the Asian elephant's larger-eared relatives.
But the biggest benefit, what we notice, is actually the sales of honey. To generate income from the presence of elephants, this creates a total different attitude towards the elephants, and people become much more tolerant as well.
After the wax cappings have been scraped off the honeycomb racks, they're put into a drum called an extractor. A gentle centrifugal force releases the honey. Once the level rises, it makes it harder to turn the lever. Excess honey is then filtered through a honey strainer into a bucket from which it is bottled. A new initiative using modern technology is brought in to manage the very real problem of human and elephant conflict.
We developed an app called Hector. So it's a human-elephant conflict tool for ongoing research. Most people in Thailand have smartphones. By downloading the app, people immediately feel like part of a research team. And it's such a useful tool for research. Like, to use technology made such a big change for scientists. And especially when you work on a project that has to do with communities. You know, there's so many ears and eyes out, and everybody has a smartphone in their pocket. And by using the app, people just take a picture. You have the GPS data, there's a map with all the details. And people just log into the app, like how many elephants they saw, what is the damage, and this all goes into a database. And different project managers can access the database, and you immediately get from a big area, you get like a complete picture of the impact of human-elephant conflicts, where community ranges are needed. It made a big difference for research, and it's just really amazing if you can use an app like this and involve local people in scientific projects as well. People are just very proud to be able to coexist with elephants. And in general, people still feel like this is the symbol of Thailand and this is such a spiritual animal. I really believe that there is a way to coexist with wild elephants and that it's not that complicated to realize it. The benefit of having elephants is much bigger than the loss that people would have from crop raiding. And if you look at that whole overall picture, then a solution, is possible.
Antoinette's time in Thailand has come to a satisfying conclusion. Conservation initiatives were in place and good people were entrusted with their running.
I felt, firstly, that I really wanted to continue studying elephants. And I also felt in Thailand a little bit that it was difficult to reach a higher level. So I was thinking maybe another country. I was also, after so many years, a little bit like maybe it's time for a change. And also, yeah, with my age, I thought, like, if I want to make a big change in my life, I should do it now and not wait too long. It has to be in a country with elephants, of course. And then we traveled to South Africa for the first time. And like the moment I arrived, I met an elephant researcher that we really connected. And my girlfriend is from South Africa, and it just felt like everything was, yeah, it was just felt right. And I immediately decided, like, let's move to South Africa and start a whole new ambitious plan here.
Antoinette soon found a few significant cultural differences that would affect how she approached her work with wild elephants.
When I came here, people are much more rich. They have like electric fences around their property. You could see they have big houses, big pieces of land. But then when an elephant comes to their land, it's almost if they have a sense like this is mine, and on my land I can do what I want. And in my opinion, like to just shoot an elephant, like in Thailand, it's such a respected animal, so yeah, symbolic, religious, spiritual. And here, that it's just like another an animal that you can hunt. That's a very big contrast. So that also demands for different solutions and different ways to collaborate with people.
Different solutions and different ways to collaborate. How does someone new to South Africa go about finding these aspects to continue with their work? Here, luck from the very start once again played a big part in pointing Antoinette in the right direction.
We were looking for a nice place to stay for my first night in Africa. And then we just found that there's a big 5 game reserve just north of Johannesburg.
Antoinette settled in at the Honey Lodge near Pretoria, a name that seemed fitting.
The owner is actually a beekeeper who is also testing beehive fences to reduce human-elephant conflicts.
Beekeeper Anton Schele knows his subject and how best to deal with a bee sting.
Okay, that's it, right?
Yeah. Now she has stung. And you see the sting here. You always have to basically scratch it out. Then you don't get much poisoning.
Are you screaming? Inside? So that was it felt a bit like magical. Like, how is it possible that on my first day in Africa, I meet a really nice elephant scientist and a beekeeper that is testing beehive fences?
Okay.
All right.
The important thing is that the net is not going anywhere onto your face,
Yeah.
otherwise they will sting.
Okay.
Fine.
Antoinette has a very good reason for being thorough with her protective clothing. She's highly allergic to bee stings. Anton is prepping a few hives for transport. As a few bees land on her, Antoinette takes notice. It's not long before 2 become a swarm. With smoke guns puffing, the bees are already agitated. Now all too aware of her unwanted passengers, Antoinette is very nervous. Anton steps in to relieve her of her burden. Like Antoinette, Anton is very keen to inspire the next generation of conservationists. Beekeeping, unlike most conservation initiatives, results in a product you can sell. It's another incentive to those looking for a job. The smartphones need to be put away. Antoinette kicks off the induction course.
So later in my presentation I will talk a bit more about, not so much about bees, but more about elephants and why your project is really going to make a difference. I think about 30% of our food depends on the pollination of bees. So if the bees disappear, and they are also threatened with extinction, that means we have a big problem with pollinating all the crops that depends on bees.
Don't you think as time goes, they will adapt to like the sound of bees or
the pain, like Anton.
Eventually.
So they're always testing, and that's it's very funny to observe that as well, and also very impressive to see how intelligent they are. More questions? Yes.
Can a single male elephant mate with 2 females?
The would-be beekeepers all need to be dressed for the occasion. Under Anton's supervision, everyone is soon kitted out, though there seems to be some misunderstanding over a pair of gloves.
Ready?
The triangular tripod-like supports have already been set up.
Now you get 2 guys, one on this side and one on this side. This side, huh? Okay.
Anton instructs the team on all the details of putting up the hives.
Just hang on. The beehive must stand like this.
The students are all enthusiastic, and like most youngsters find the process of dressing up and learning a new skill amusing rather than daunting.
You have to do maintenance, you have to take the bees away there.
Anyway,
yeah. But we try the different things.
Yeah.
And then we will find out. Yeah?
This training exercise is valuable to the students and teachers alike. You can't teach people how to put up beehive fences without actually doing it.
You know why we're putting this so high? When we get the normal antelopes, they can walk underneath without collapsing it. The only animals that really will collapse it is basically the giraffes and the elephants.
The elegance of the idea of beehive fencing is that in trying to prevent conflict, the answer is something that benefits the environment.
20 meters.
We don't have a measuring tape, but we measure it on the fence. There's something, yeah? I'll give you a clue, but you know what it is? I'll take this tapping a little bit further back.
It's from elephant.
There's ample evidence that elephants are in the area. With her decade of elephant experience behind her, Antoinette fitted right in at the Dinokeng Game Reserve.
Dinokeng Game Reserve is a new project. It started in 2011, and this land used to be all private landowners. And the government wanted to create a project to support the local community here and to increase tourism in this province. So they convinced landowners to drop their fences and they would bring the big five to this game reserve. So lions, leopards, buffaloes, elephants and rhinos. I got in touch with the management of Dino Keng and they were immediately really interested because I had that experience with human-elephant conflicts and especially beehive fences. They were just developing a plan to start beehive fences here. So they really wanted to know about my experience, about how to monitor, and I gave a presentation about our results in Thailand. So they felt they really needed somebody with experience inside the reserve. Living in the bush is a new dream. It's happening. I'm suddenly living in the bush and every day is different. I just start to feel like this is my world. I don't watch the news. I'm just concerned with everything that is happening in the bush and I'm just very grateful to have that experience and also have no idea where it's going to take me, how it's going to change me as a person. But I'm sure it's going to be like a great learning experience that, will help me grow as a person and as a conservationist. I live with the sound. So many people ask me, is there still hope? And I always feel it's my responsibility as a scientist and as a conservationist to always say, there is hope. Oh, that's amazing. Because solutions are not that complex. I just wish that many more people would get involved with conservation or that many more people would just have an opportunity to see elephants in a natural environment and to see how amazing they are. With everything that is happening in the world, people are so disconnected from nature. And I think it's just with a little effort, you can make a huge change.
Antoinette's perseverance and dedication to her beloved elephants can only inspire the next generation. There is still hope in the forest.